Welcome to a new video. This video is actually quite special because it is the beginning of a new video series in which I am going to share all the lessons that I learned from academia, from my PhD, and so on. So this is lesson number 1, the first video, and today I want to talk about probably the most important lesson that I learned during my PhD was that academia wasn't for me. And although this might sound quite underwhelming at the beginning, the experience itself wasn't that, first of all, it wasn't that straightforward, but also it wasn't really something that I feel was not quite right. I remember the first time I felt something was not quite right was when I was in my second year of my PhD, and I remember I was going home from a conference. I was in a train, and I was thinking how incredibly boring all this thing was. So I found it super draining, super boring, and the only thing I could think of is, if this is what my future will look like, I'm not really looking forward to it. And I remember that just this realization, there just was no eagerness for knowledge. And I do believe that scientists especially should have this eagerness for knowledge, like finding out how things work, finding out how the world works, basically. This is the main job. If you would want to describe a scientist, you would probably use some of those descriptions, right? People who are there to find out why something does something or how something works and so on. And I just didn't feel that, which was quite weird, because if I had described myself beforehand, I would always say that curiosity and finding out how things worked were my number one traits, personality traits or whatsoever. And all of a sudden I felt this feeling that this was not quite right for me. This wasn't actually what I was supposed to do, and I just didn't feel that spark inside when I was doing research. And needless to say that since the PhD basically consists of research, and a huge part of the PhD is actually research, it brought quite frustrating experience, because okay, if you are supposed to do 80% of the time you're doing something that it's not quite right, what are you even doing? However, there was this one part, this tiny part of the PhD, which was teaching, that was actually, I would say, keeping me into the game, because every time I went to the classroom to teach my students, to have conversations with them, to give classes, I would always feel so recharged and refreshed. And actually, this was the part of the PhD that actually kept me sane, I would say, because of course research is hard per se, but if you don't love it, then it's even harder, because you do not have this physical manifestation of your work. It's super hard because first of all, it's objectively hard because you're doing literally discovering new things, but then it's also this subjective part of hard that is, if you don't really love it and you don't really enjoy it, it becomes really challenging to somehow motivate yourself to continue. However, there was this teaching part of the PhD that I found super rewarding, because I kind of always knew that, and this is the reflection that this is the point that I wanted to reach with this video. I kind of always knew that summarizing, explaining, structuring stuff for other people was actually what I was supposed to do. However, there was this idea of me that I would fulfill this need becoming an university professor, so the path was quite clear. You do a PhD, then you do a postdoc, another postdoc, and then you apply for a permanent position, and then you are a professor. So that was more or less my idea. However, I just realized that doing research wasn't as fulfilling for me as teaching, and so I sort of put all of my focus into teaching and into bringing knowledge to my students, to others. And then I said, okay, but so if this is something I enjoy so much, are there any ways I can turn this actually in a career? And the good news about academia, even though I realized during my PhD that academia isn't for me, I realized actually what is for me. So if I would say lesson number one, what it would be is that during my PhD, I learned that academia definitely isn't for me, but academia and the PhD and research open doors to me finding what actually is for me. And that is definitely this kind of structure, providing explanations, providing summaries, summarizing, structuring, and explaining complex work to other people. And funnily enough, this is exactly what I do nowadays with STEM professionals. I help them structure their projects. I help them provide some structure into the noise, whether they are stuck with their projects, whether they do not know how to communicate their project because they are applying for some funding, or they are, applying for some positions, or if they are just seeking for a promotion, they are wanting to get promoted, to get some recognition at their work, and they need to improve the way they are actually selling, expressing, and explaining their work to others. So I wanted to share this lesson with you today. It's something that I learned from my PhD experience. So, and also I wanted to invite you to join my coaching program if you are a STEM professional who has sort of this project that never feels done, and there are so many messy ideas all over the place. You don't know how to summarize all of that, you don't know how to structure it, how to explain it, how to put it all together would be a good definition. Then I invite you to join my completely free coaching call that you can find in the link, that you can book in the link in the description. And of course, I'm looking forward to hearing from you, to sharing ideas with you, and of course to seeing you in the next video. Bye bye.